We are dealing with a crisis right now.
Yeah.
There are millions and millions of homeless pets and animals that some of them are forced to live on the street in dangerous conditions, getting hit by cars, dealing with weather, getting scooped up by animal abusers, who knows?
Right,
And
that's the scary part.
there's good-hearted people out there that they want their money to go to something that is helping animals, and they give $5, $10, $20 a month, and they think that they're doing good. But there are some quote-unquote rescue groups out there that are actually hoarding animals.
Horrible.
And keeping them in just, horrific conditions, in cages, covered in feces.
Right.
Just to preface things, guys, this is not to say that every single person that's in the animal rescue world doesn't have good intentions.
Yeah. It's not for everyone, but...
Right. In this episode, we're going to break down how to find a reputable shelter, if you want to help animals, how you can support, or if you want to adopt, where are places that you can go. But before we get there, let's talk about what hoarding is.
Hoarding is my biggest nightmare.
What is it?
It's when you accumulate one too many of anything. And all of a sudden, the living conditions are unbearable and often toxic and just not healthy.
Well, it is a mental disorder, and hoarding, actually, my first fact is that hoarding is the #1 animal cruelty crisis facing companion animals in communities throughout our country. That's crazy.
That's really crazy.
And not only that, but this hoarding in terms of animals is fake rescues who dupe the public and hoard animals. And then you have, puppy mills, quote unquote, no-kill shelters. And you have this animal overpopulation crisis, and this enables this type of hoarding to go on because hoarders will then just take the money, and then the dogs and cats are living
suffering
in these abysmal conditions.
I know, it's so sad, and it could have been well intended in the beginning, but things get overwhelming and people lose sight of the individual.
Well, take a guess as to how many individuals this is happening to in our country.
Millions.
250,000 animals, just in the U.S. I'm talking about, are victims of hoarders every year.
Because honestly, Animal Cops used to be my toxic show that I used to be obsessed with when I was younger. My mom used to be like, stop watching this. You are acting wild. So I used to curse and get angry and yell. I'm like, no. Because I used to see animal hoarding situations on Animal Cops, and sometimes there are dead animals on the floor, under a couch, in a box, because there's so many that those people are just not capable of taking care of all of them. So these hoarding situations, a lot of these animals die.
There's a stat that I have here that 70% of animal hoarding cases include fire hazards. And some fires at hoarding operations that are posing as rescues, they will then collect money, fundraisers after. And you almost think, you're like, did they set the place on fire?
Probably.
And PETA.org, if you go on there and you look up hoarding, there are pictures of dogs in cages that were burned alive.
No.
Can you imagine? Literally, put yourself in that situation and just think about being trapped in a cage. There's flames all around you. You can't get out. You're barking for help. And then you die. Your lungs are engulfed in the smoke.
Do you want me to cry? I've been doing so well, Jamie. I don't want to cry. That breaks my heart. Anytime I see any type of fire, I know a lot of people will judge me. I think about the animals. I don't think about the humans, because they can at least open up a window. A dog, a cat, a bird, the fish, they can't open up the window. Or scream for help, and it kills me.
No, and nobody's there to help them. They just die in the fire, and then their bodies are found burnt and dead.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Shelters try to keep their euthanasia rates low, and this is just a fact. And so what they'll do is, when hoarders come along, or so-called animal rescues come along and say, we'll take 20 dogs off your hands, the shelters are likely to just give them over, and sometimes they don't look into who they're giving the dogs to. Or cats too. And so
horrible.
So you look at these save rates, and truly you're not saving an animal by giving them over to a hoarder. You're just
perpetuating the situation. Yeah.
And you got to look at the root of the problem. The root of the problem is that there are way too many animals that exist. We need to up our spay and neuter rates and facilities, because right now you have a dog or a cat that's out on the street, and a cat, for example, one unspayed unspayed female cat, and it could lead to 370,000 kittens in 7 years.
Oh my God. That's so sad.
On any given day in the U.S., there is an estimated 70 million homeless dogs and cats struggling to survive.
Sadness.
So, you said earlier in the episode, you're like, well, do I just let them be on their own and be outside? And I mean,
it's tricky.
It's really tricky, and I'm going to hear your side of the things, but you also have to recognize that homeless dogs and cats on the street, they oftentimes get hit by cars. They're vulnerable to attacks.
Right.
They can get diseases.
Right.
And depending on where you live, you want to make sure that your companion animal has food at night, has basic care.
For sure. I mean, I say it's tricky just because if it were me, I would rather be homeless on the street, struggling, figuring it out. Hopefully something amazing happens, as opposed to being caged up, locked up. But I don't know, shelters.
Well, in an idyllic world, we wouldn't have animals running around on the streets and having to fend for themselves, because that is a dangerous situation in itself. And I don't necessarily agree with it. And PETA doesn't agree with just having animals to fend for themselves on the street. And PETA does feel that it is more humane to euthanize an animal that might have sickness or disease or behavioral problems than to just let them try and figure it out, or to put them in a hoarding situation case. So let's talk about, Dan's gonna really be able to answer the roots of the hoarding issue and really answer our questions about this. I do want you to consider this one quote that I came across that I think describes this topic very clearly, which is, you're walking next to a river and you see a kitten floating past. You jump in, you save the kitten, and then another one floats by, and you save that one too. Then another, and another, and another float by. And you soon realize you can't save them all.
Story of my life.
So you run upstream to see who's throwing the kittens into the water, and you stop that person.
And you punch them in the face, 100%. Well, I agree.
I don't know about the punching part, but.
No, that was literally me on my street. Like, I live in the Bronx, and I've rescued, I don't even know how many cats. I have seen many kittens down the river, metaphorically speaking, and have tried to help it. And the root of it is these animals on the street, they could get pregnant.
And you can't save them all, right? And they have to be spayed and neutered.